Okay. I do have 5:30 on my watch at this time. We will call a special call meeting of the Macon Board of Education to order. Are we streaming, Tim?
We are now.
Okay, sorry. Welcome everybody. I kind of threw a curve at Tim there. I just got started off, realized it was 5:30. So welcome everyone that's looking in on watch this take part. Like I said, this is a special call meeting. We set this up at our last regularly scheduled meeting for a couple of purposes, and I'm glad that we're doing it because I think we'll have some, hopefully some important news to share shortly. But at the same time, we'll move forward, so at 5:30. So first on the agenda, board members, is overnight out of trip district request. Looks like these are two that we did not see on our board meeting Monday. Ms. Collins for livestock judging. I believe they do this every year, don't they?
Yes.
Dr. Baldwin. And then Mrs. McCoo on a swim meet at Raven Gap McCoochie School on December 8th. Those school days we missed. Anybody have any questions of Dr. Baldwin on these two requests?
Move we accept as presented.
Have a motion to move that we accept. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I have to always look at you two, put you on the spot. Hillary, your vote was?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Thank you. John made us do that last time because in terms of that, so sorry. I'm not picking on you, it's what we have to do. Essa funding, employee bonuses. We'll turn the floor over to you, Dr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Lynch to provide us with some information regarding an update on the Essa Community Committee that was put together to help us determine the best way to budget the federal funding that was to go towards the COVID relief. Ms. Wilkes is also on that committee, but Josh can provide us with exactly how the committee came up with the needs and how to best address those needs. Tim, I believe you have a PowerPoint.
Yep. Okay, so in your packets, you will see the top suggestions that were gathered by teachers, students, as well as parents. And within those suggested items, you'll also see a data analysis conclusion.
Now, Tim, can Hillary and let me see this?
Let me sure. Let me do
I
that.
have it on my iPad.
Oh, okay, so you have it?
You have it on your iPad so you can follow along on the pad, guys?
Yeah. Have it here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Okay. So, in looking at the data analysis conclusion, that would probably be the simplest way to kind of disaggregate this data. Within all subgroups, the teachers, the students, as well as the parents, the top 5 priorities that all stakeholders agreed upon were hands-on, experiential learning, and outdoor education, which I think we have done a fine job with the addition of our STEAM and STEM coordinators as well as teachers. And also with that, our teachers have a lot of hands-on lessons that they have since incorporated into their curriculums that really speak to that component, which also addresses learning loss as well as social emotional, so a lot of things tie in there. More art, more music, more extracurriculars, which we can look to our personnel, because we have hired our 2 STEAM teachers as well as our art and music, and we have got that solidified throughout the district at the elementaries. Now all of our elementary schools have art and music as well as STEAM areas that are going to be year-long. Beforehand, we would have to share that, and that would be like more of a semester-based activity. But now those are year-long, so that we feel as though that is a good steward of the funds in that regard. More enhanced science and STEM, as we have talked about. One area was in regards to less testing, and just looking at the district, and we were able to take off a lot of the benchmarks that we had prior to. And just really focused on what the state has basically required of us through DIBELS 8, and we have lessened the math testing, and we have pulled that on in regards to iReady. So I feel as though that has been a priority that we've been able to do based upon a community collaborative. And if you look at all of those in a nutshell, I feel like, it is fun and it is engaging, not only for the students, but for the teachers as well, as they are planning lessons and delivering that content in that manner to our students. One thing I want you guys just to take note on, too, is there has been a lot of project-based learning engagement throughout the county. Union Academy, as well as Iowa Valley, are engaging in those activities, and we have 2 other elementary schools who are looking along those lines just to kind of bring that attention to what project-based learning could look like at their individual schools. So if we take all that in regards to what the community collaborative came back, I feel like those top priorities based upon the students and the teachers as well as the communities have been a major priority, and I feel like we've done a fine job with that. The mental health needs were areas that were top priorities throughout each of those subgroups, and we have been able to fill 6 of those throughout the district utilizing the ESSER funds. And that could not have come at a more poignant time, not only for our students, but also for our teachers as well. So I feel like, we are being really good stewards of the funding, and will continue to do so. But that is kind of the data conclusion part of that. When you look through the rest of your packet, I won't go into each of the demographics represented, the students, the teachers, as well as the parents, unless there are just specific questions. But once that data was disaggregated, the analysis conclusion pretty much sums that whole, each of those slides into one kind of manageable overlook. And that's where we're at this point. Do you all have any questions that I can answer, or anything that I need to clarify before we move forward?
Like you spent some time.
Well, this was actually part of the closing of Open Way Learning. They were able to provide this for us as part of the contract. We had asked if they would present these findings for us and for the community collaborative. And
I forgot to mention that Mr. Shields is actually on that committee as well as Ms. Woods.
Okay, so we had a lot of representation, and they were able to provide us with a lot of data.
So, with that in mind, Tim, I'll present now, and we'll look at the budget that we were able to develop with the community collaborative to address the needs that we have in the system, and budget those funds that we're getting from the federal government to address the issues that have arisen as a result of COVID-19. So, if you'll recall, we've discussed the 6 classrooms at East Franklin at $3.75 million, and that's a slight unknown. We're basing that on what we spent at South Macon, the 6 classrooms down there, which was nearly $3 million. So we're just assuming that there will be some inflation involved, and we hope that we can build those 6 classrooms at 3.75, but we'll have to, towards decision to move forward with that, we need to start that RFQ process tomorrow. The HVAC geothermal issues at Iowa Valley, we budgeted $750,000 for that. The active panels and other technology needs throughout the system, iPads, laptops, and that sort of thing, we budgeted $1.5 million. The $2.13 million for learning loss is a non-negotiable. We have to spend at least 20% of the $14.8 million that you see here. That has to go towards learning loss.
What exactly is that?
We have to budget that amount of money to address the learning, impact. Yeah. That, and when you ask me what that means, that's the definition. We also.
Just a clarification I got, it's like we did with summer school and the programs we're trying to do.
That would be part of it.
That's all part of what we're looking forward to, and I think everybody's gonna be involved in that, so.
We also budgeted $2.7 million for additional staff. And if you look over here in this column, you can see some of the examples of the staff that we actually already have on payroll to address the needs that have arisen as a result of COVID-19. The 6 mental health professionals that Mr. Lynch mentioned, an art teacher, a music teacher, 2 STEM teachers, at least 1 teacher assistant, an ELL teacher, an ELL tutor, an EC teacher, an EC teacher assistant, half of the virtual academy principal salary, and 3 nurses. Roughly 19 and a half positions, and that's where the $2.7 million was budgeted. We also budgeted $2.25 million for staff retention, which was a continuation of the bonus that we saw last May of $750 for all full-time personnel and $375 for all part-time personnel. Additionally, we budgeted $1.5 million for staff development, and that totaled $14.5 million. So that had a remainder of about $257,000 that could be used to cover whatever needs that might arise between now and December 2024. And again, those are fairly rough estimates. Now, after the board meeting last Monday night, Josh, Mr. Lynch, Ms. Cook, and I sat down and looked at some possible ways to move some of this money into more of a staff retention bonus as the board suggested. A couple of things that we looked at was that we could reduce the budget amount of $2.7 million for staff down to about $1.7 million and still cover these 19 and a half positions that we have over here. And also reduce the staff development from $1.5 million to $1 million. That would increase our total budget of staff retention up to 4.5, basically double the budget, which means that we could go from a $750 yearly bonus for full-time to $1,500 and go from $375 for part-time to $750 for part-time. So basically double our current bonus. That's one option. Obviously, the board can look at other items on that budget and make changes as they see fit. Ms. Cook, Mr. Lynch, do you have anything to add to that discussion? Now, one of the things that we did discuss at the Monday night was the possibility of some of the state bonuses coming in December and negatively affecting the tax withholdings for staff in December. Angie, I think you have some information about that from the state that sort of changes that perspective.
The latest word we're getting right now is that nothing will be done prior to January 1st. That the retro pay, basically, when the salary increases are put in effect, they will be in effect by July 1st, but all the retro pay will be paid out in one lump sum after January 1st as a bonus, in the form of a bonus at one time. So nothing will be paid in December. That will go on their 2021 W-2s.
Now, it is still a very short time turnaround because December is a short payroll month. For us to, and Angie can speak to what that's going to, kind of challenge that's going to be for the finance department to be able to get that out and get it out accurately. When is the last work day of December?
Well, payday is the 17th, which is the last day that everyone goes home for Christmas break. which means we would have to draw down those funds by the 13th, which means we would have to have everything done by the 10th, which would be that Friday. So basically, when we come back from Thanksgiving break, that would give us 10 days to send out turnaround documents to all schools, get all the bookkeepers report absences, get those back in here and get it keyed in within that time.
Is that doable?
It is doable.
But how much stress would you put on your department?
A lot.
Chris, can you clarify for the 6 classrooms at East Franklin, does that include some space for some of their pre-K needs?
Yes, that would include space for pre-K. Those 6 classrooms would include space for pre-K. Ultimately, the ESSER money has to be tied to the impact of COVID-19, and the bulk of the facility issues at East Franklin are around additional space due to the age of that building, the size of the classrooms. You know, they're 1950s size classrooms. And there's also poorly ventilated tutoring and other mediation type areas. I mean, last year they were tutoring in stairwells, and so the additional classroom space would address a lot of COVID issues with that building, as well as additional space for a pre-K to be at East Franklin, which does fall within the COVID-19, the use of the COVID monies to address learning loss, because those kids, particularly those kids at East Franklin and that demographic has had a tremendous negative impact dealt on them as a result of COVID-19. So, yes.
I had one other thing that stood out to me that I would just like to get a little bit more information on. When you look at the survey results, the number one parent response for need was improved teaching. For students, aside from I don't know, which was number one, but number 2 was improved teaching. So can you talk about this $500,000 for staff development versus $1.5 million for staff development, and what we would be able to accomplish with more in terms of teacher education and them not having to do things out of pocket? Or do you feel like the $500,000 line would be sufficient to make a big improvement over the next 3 years? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'll explain the line of thinking that we had when we put that budget together. You know, there was a lot of unknowns regarding what would be required, what would be asked of us in terms of what the teachers would be expecting for professional development. So we set that number pretty high, at $1.5 million. That was a very large amount for professional development, and it was an unknown. We didn't know what teachers would expect or what teachers would want and what our expectations would be looking, particularly with what exactly had been created by COVID-19 in terms of needs. I do think, and Mr. Lynch and Brooke can speak to this as well, but I do think that $500,000 would be sufficient to cover any professional development needs, at least anything that's been discussed at this point.
I think I'm seeing Josh look at
Significant amount.
It is a very large amount. As we were looking down, the barrel of COVID and trying to prepare our teachers and pivot so quickly, the PD that we were able to put together just for remote learning was very impactful. It was very significant, and it was very cost effective. So we have resources within the county so far, just with our capacity, that we can really do high quality PD, very economical. But as we bring in open way learning, which we have, Union Academy is under a contract with them. Iowa Valley is looking at a contract with them. And that is a school-wide contract that they have decided to partner with. That line item is not going to be a lot, to be quite honest with you, in the big grand scheme of it. And so I feel, just like Dr. Baldwin had mentioned, that looking at the needs as well as kind of where we're headed in the future, 500,000 is significant, and we can do a lot with that. And each school can have the autonomy to be able to customize and craft whatever professional development they really do need to serve and support their teachers.
In addition to that, one of the major impacts of COVID-19, one of the things that we're most concerned about is early childhood literacy. And the new state superintendent, Catherine Truitt, has emphasized that very thing, and the state is now putting a lot of money towards early childhood literacy, particularly with regard to what's called the science of reading. So that's sort of shifting some of our need away from that literacy component, but now the state is going to be using a lot of their ESSER money to address that need, so we can shift some of our money to other areas.
So there will be funds for the project-based learning contracts with for other schools available should they decide to work with Open Way Learning to get some of their curriculum implementation?
Yes, there will be.
Yeah, I think that Adam, if I recall correctly, Adam expressed that 1.5 million was an excessive amount for PD when we initially put that budget forward.
I have a question too. I had a question along the same lines as Hillary did. Adding also on the teacher suggestion, they seem to their biggest need is teachers need more support. So I was just concerned on that second one. It looks like that we're cutting some out of the staff instead of adding, keeping that for new staff. Seems to me like the teachers are wanting help more than anything else.
Yeah. We're actually not cutting anything from the 19.5 positions that we already have in place. That 1.7 million would continue to fully fund the 19.5 positions that we have already on the ESSER payroll. So there's not been a reduction in that amount.
So what do you think the teachers are looking for there?
Well, I think that survey went out before we hired the 19.5 positions. They might be looking for additional support, but we've hired roughly 20 folks since that survey went out.
So this teacher, the new positions are all.
You cut out on me, Missy, I'm sorry.
I said these new positions on here are already in place.
Yes, yeah. And that survey went out prior to us hiring any of those.
Yes, that was like a May type of survey that went out, early May.
When you say teacher aides, is that elementary aides, or did we misspell that, or what? Define what teacher aides is defined as, Josh.
That's in he's looking at the graph.
On the graph, or what they're talking about, more teacher support suggestions, more support / teacher aides.
So most likely they're looking at teacher assistants.
Yeah, but we're also looking at that would be commitments, once you do that ongoing, which would extend way beyond the education that ESSER for. I just want to make sure. Okay, good.
The other thing too with teacher assistants, especially those that are hired out of federal funds, a teacher assistant hired from federal funds has to be highly qualified. And to be able to hire a significant number of highly qualified folks, which is they have to have at least, I believe it's 48 hours of post high school education. In this particular employment climate, to be able to hire a significant number of folks that are highly qualified would be an extreme challenge right now. We're struggling to find, to fill teaching positions right now.
This one that we talked about, it's good to talk about it, you still gotta have the bodies to fill the positions. Any other questions? We have the two scenarios, Hillary, Missy.
And Missy, you and Hillary both
Carol.
can still see that spreadsheet, correct, with on the budget on it?
Mhm.
Even
I
though
don't
I'll
have
stop
any
sharing it. What's that?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
Me either.
I'll compliment you, Dr. Ball, and who all helped on this. I think y'all have looked at the areas and I think we're all in agreement, especially after what Brooke had to say about East Franklin at our last meeting. The addition of East Franklin has been uppermost in my mind. I felt like all along that was part of the monies I would not budge on. I have anything to say. That pretty much has to be done, in my opinion. I don't see no way it just has to be done. And Brooke, you put it very, very well. It almost brought a tear to my eye as you start talking about pre-K and issues over there. I'm telling folks, that was powerful. So, I think where we left last time, the board felt like the expiration of additional amounts, an additional amount for teacher retention, more in line with what some, I think we're definitely in line with what other counties are doing, Dr. Baldwin, correct? Possibly a little higher, but not much.
It varies from county to county. I talked to a number of superintendents since our last board meeting, and pretty inconsistent across the state with regard to how counties are using their ESSER funding for retention bonuses. I would say that we're definitely on the upper end of that, at least in our region. And I would add one other comment about the 6 classrooms at East Franklin. They're just, again, that's something that we have to put up for RFQ. That $3.75 million is our best guess at this point. And the other thing is that money has to be spent by December of 2024, which means we've got to begin that project immediately to ensure that we actually have those monies spent. We don't want to begin that project in the summer of 2023 and expect to have 6 classrooms completed by December of 2024. We need to start that project as soon as possible, which means we've got to start the RFQ process and see what the project will actually cost. And then, if that project comes in at 3.75 or more, we may not be able to do the project.
So we basically have two things. Once we approve this, we also need to authorize you to immediately start the process of issuing RFQ.
That's correct.
And action.
If that project comes in too expensive, we may look at reappropriating that amount of money for additional retention bonuses. Also, if we're fortunate and we've overestimated the cost of that 6 classrooms, that may be additional funding that we can then roll into a retention bonus later on.
This gives us flexibility. Exactly. And all these figures are just based on our best guesses at this point. Yes, what to say one way or the other.
Yes.
Any other questions, board members? Basically, looks like we have two scenarios where we look at, I'm gonna call it option one, which would be, Dr. Baldwin discussed, would be a retention of $750, and option two. I'll open the floor for a motion.
And let me ask you one question, and this would be to be effective January 1. To go out January 1. Instead of
That was a question we talked to Angie.
instead of December, because that's a tight month
Right.
for.
Well, but the problem with January is that's when all of the state bonuses and retro pay are supposed to go out. So it would not be advantageous to our employees if we put all of that out in January.
So when do you want to put that out? Yes, we're saying.
I'm not trying to get smart at you when I say what I'm about to say, but hopefully I was thinking that 1,500 is going to be going to your department also, so I was hoping that would be somewhat of an incentive where it helped ease some of the pain in terms of the work we're doing. So my question to you is it being totally unreasonable to ask and see if we can get this out in this year.
It's not unreasonable, but it may constitute some overtime.
Okay. And we're not talking about a large amount, I would assume,
No.
correct?
No,
I think we possibly get out this year, is what we need to try to do, board members. Next year, we're talking about, because I also think the back, what was it, the back, no, it's what we call back pay, retro pay is gonna add up, and then plus they also have another $1,000 in addition to that, correct, from the state? They're gonna give one-time bonus.
Could be potentially
Pay raise.
1,500 because there's one in there for 1,000 and then there's another if you make less than 75,000.
So 15. So you
500.
start adding that up, and you start talking about in 1 year, in a lot of cases, my math is well over $5,000, and you throw this amount over, that's, in a lot of cases, that would be enough to kick teacher into another tax bracket, very possible. So,
And also,
plus we are closing in on Christmas time, guys.
and one thing to consider, I think, is that our teachers and teacher assistants will receive that 2% bonus in their November check.
Check.
But
The other employees do
our
not.
bus drivers, our custodians, our clerical workers, they're not included in that 2% bonus. So, any bonus that they could get before Christmas would be very beneficial.
They'll hold you to it, how much overtime you think we're talking about? I was gonna ask that.
I have no idea. I mean,
But you'll oversee it and do the best we can, that's all.
I just think they
we'll
need
get it
to
done. If
compensate.
that's what the board wishes, it'll happen. We'll get it done.
Well, compensate.
It will not break our budget.
A little bit of overtime, I don't think, exactly. Any other questions? Again, the floor is open for questions, motions. We need to clarify that, we're gonna try to do that as far as when we pay it. If whoever makes a motion, we need to clarify when we're gonna, in terms of trying to pay it. I know where I wanna go, but I can't make a motion. I can second it, but I can't make a motion.
I approve, it to go out in the December, is that what you're saying?
We need to decide which option we want to do first.
Option 2?
So do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Mr. Case making a motion that we adopt option 2, which means that we will be issuing employee retention bonus of $1,500 this month, hopefully before to be paid in our December payroll. And it also means we're committing to $1,500 each year thereafter for a total of 3 years at $1,500. Correct?
Yes, sir.
That's the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Is this just for full-time employees or substitutes? Are you including?
No, the option 2, we're including $1,500 and $750 for part-time. Correct?
Part-time.
Right. Correct? Okay, I understand. That clarify for you, Angie?
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor, someone saying aye?
Aye.
Hillary? Hand up,
Aye.
aye. Missy?
Aye.
Thank you. By that show that by a 5-0 vote, the board approved option 2, which would include as we described.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to point out something that you stated in that motion, that $1,500 is budgeted to be recurring through 2024. So that's a $1,500 bonus each year
This
through
year?
2024.
Correct. I hope that serves as a gesture of our appreciation to our, and we always, sometimes we fall into that, and I hope I don't mess up when I say this, sometimes we're so used to talking about teachers, but I want to, hopefully this comes across as that we appreciate every single one of our staff throughout our school system. Not that this go, hopefully we go that way. I feel like sometimes we forget to acknowledge, as Dr. Bowman said, the people in our offices, our janitorial, bus drivers, all those people.
Yeah.
They're every single one essential to our system operating as smoothly and as well as it does. So I hope that's what this conveys to them, our appreciation for that. Any other business? We need to, based on what we just adopted, we also need to get a vote out to authorize Dr. Baldwin, I'm assuming whoever chooses to start the process of issuing RFQ for our East Franklin edition. So I'll entertain a motion to that, please.
So moved.
A motion, we authorize Dr. Bowden to proceed forthwith as soon as possible to start the RFQ process so we get an idea of what it would cost to do our East Franklin edition. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Missy and Hill, if you would just raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any other business, Dr. Baldwin?
No, sir.
Before we go into closed session.
No, sir.
Board members? Hillary, Missy, anything else? All right, this time the board will take a vote to go into closed session. We'll go in under statute 143-318, period 11A1, to prevent the disclosure of privileged or confidential personnel information pursuant to General Statute 115C-319-321, and student matters pursuant to General Statute 115C-402 and 20 USC 1232G, FERPA. I entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Raise your hand,
Aye.
please. Thank you. We will, because they're on, here, we'll need to stay in here. So, and I'll say before Tim shuts off, are we still on streaming? Again, I want to thank everyone that took the time to visit with us and watch and take part in what we accomplished tonight. I'm very proud of this board. I think we did a very good thing tonight. Really did. So thank you everyone for being here.
Thanks, Kevin. You too.